Welcome back to the deep dive. And today we've got quite a mountain of data to get through for you. We're trying to chart what can only be described as a firestorm.
A firestorm is the perfect word for it.
Yeah. We're talking about AFT Dice Season 11, specifically the first half. And the sources you sent us, they cover everything. Rankings, reports, deep tactical analyses.
Right from round 1 all the way to the round 14 preview.
And if there's one word that comes out of all this material, it's just chaos.
It truly is. I mean, for an analyst, this season is defined by its sheer lack of predictability. The power rankings have been, rewritten seemingly every 48 hours.
So what's our mission today? How do we map this?
Our mission is to chronologically map this unprecedented volatility. We're going to look at that very short-lived period where power structures were established.
Our teams look genuinely untouchable.
Exactly. And then we're going to track how it all just disintegrated. How the midseason mayhem, especially those brutal round 13 results, left the entire ladder compressed.
Like an accordion.
Like an accordion that's been slammed shut. That's a great image for it.
Because it really captures it. You start the season with this unbelievable, almost arrogant display of dominance from a team like Adelaide.
Oh, absolutely.
A 66-point showdown win over Port Adelaide. They're instantly number one. Percentage is 191.7. I mean, that feels like the ultimate statement of intent.
It felt like absolute certainty, didn't it? The kind of thing that should set the tone for the entire year.
Right.
But then you look at the final snapshot in our reports right before round 14, and that certainty is just gone. Annihilated.
So what do we see instead?
You see a three-way tie for the lead. You see teams surging from the bottom, and the biggest upset of the season just happened to the team. Everyone just crowned the new leader.
So the lesson from all these reports is?
The core lesson is that in season 11, dominance isn't just fleeting, it's practically a target.
Okay, let's unpack this opening round because it really did feel like a declaration of war. The reports called them monster teams, and Adelaide was the apex predator.
Without a doubt. That 66-point dismantling of Port Adelaide, 138-72, it wasn't just about the margin.
No, it was psychological.
Exactly. The psychological warfare was the most interesting takeaway from the analysis. Port Adelaide went into that game pegged as a premiership favorite.
Right, that's what all the preseason reports said.
And within 3 hours, they plummet straight to 18th place. Dead last. The emotional and statistical crater was just immense.
And the tactical breakdown said what? How did it happen?
It said Port's midfield was completely overrun. They just couldn't handle Adelaide's transition speed. And it led to these high percentage shots for the Crows again and again.
And that set the tone for their whole season.
It really did. It turned their premiership hopes into a desperate fight for survival right from the first siren.
But the domination wasn't just in that rivalry game. You had Fremantle, a team often criticized for traveling. They go to the MCG.
And make a huge statement, a huge one.
Yeah.
They demolished Collingwood by 51 points.
115-64. That puts them at number 2 in the rankings right away.
And that is a true signal of elite early strength. The Dockers' performance gave them that intimidating 179.7% percentage.
So you have these two teams, Adelaide and Fremantle, instantly defined by massive scoring.
And an unforgiving defense. They looked like the blueprint for how to win season 11.
But round 1 also gave us that first little taste of chaos.
It did. St. Kilda. They won a gutsy 6-point road heist at the Gabba against Brisbane. That gritty road win was huge for them, and it perfectly foreshadowed their own early success.
Right, as the masters of the clutch moment.
Exactly.
But here's where the reports get really insightful. The biggest vulnerability they flagged right away wasn't defense, it was accuracy.
Yes, pure scoring inefficiency. It cost 2 major contenders their opening matches. Melbourne lost to Richmond by just 8 points.
Despite kicking 19 behinds, 19.1 point.
It's unbelievable. If they kick even 4 more goals from those misses, they win easily. And Sydney was almost as bad. They lost to Gold Coast with an ugly 11.1 ting.
So it's not a tactical failure.
No, not at all. It's systemic mental fragility. That inaccuracy became this recurring, devastating theme that set both of their seasons on a downward spiral from the get-go.
And while they're being inefficient, the alarm bells are already ringing for the Brisbane Lions.
Absolutely. They blew a winnable game at home, losing by 6 to St. Kilda and dropped to 10th. For a team that relies so heavily on that fortress advantage, that signaled an underlying instability that would just plague them. Hashtag tag 1.2. The first wave of chaos and contender confirmation. Round 2.
Okay, so if round 1 established the Titans, round 2 was the moment the real contenders confirmed their threat level. And the reports, they really zeroed in on Richmond.
The Tigers were they were operating at a frightening level of attack.
Frightening is the right word.
They seized the #1 spot, 2-0, a colossal 160.3% percentage. The data shows they were absolutely carving teams apart with these huge scores.
21-point set in round 1, then 19-point on team in round 2.
And that 50-point thrashing of Brisbane at the MCG was definitive proof. Their attack could travel and it could shred a high-profile defense.
But the biggest shock of round 2, the thing that really showed the season's capacity for a bounce back, has to be the Western Bulldogs, the GMHBA massacre.
This swing just embodies the volatility of season 11.
Yeah.
You have to remember, in round 1, the Bulldogs suffered a brutal, soul-crushing defeat.
Right. They led Hawthorn by 20 points, kicked 1.5, and lost by 7.
A collapse that often defines a season. Yet 1 week later, they deliver what the reports called the biggest win ever recorded at Cardinia Park.
Demolishing Geelong by 63 points at their fortress.
123-60. It's insane.
It has to be a major psychological reset.
And it moved them instantly from 12th up to 6th. It proved that the collapse was a one-off mental failure, not a talent issue. The Dogs were now officially a chaos team to be feared.
And on the other side of that, Brisbane's crisis deepens dramatically.
That 50-point hiding was catastrophic. They're 0-2, their percentage is shredded, they fall to 15th, the biggest slider of the round.
Wow.
The reports confirmed they went from a preseason contender with, minor alarm bells, to a team in officially critical crisis in 8 days. Hashtag 1.3, the perfect record dies. Round 3.
So round 3 felt like a strategic tightrope walk, a survival week, really. And it was defined by these incredible clutch wins.
The tension was palpable in the reports, wasn't it? We had 3 results that went right down to the wire.
Adelaide barely survived. A 1-point heartstopper against those surging Bulldogs, 88-87.
Snatched it with the final kick of the day. And then Hawthorn, the ultimate chaos merchants.
They get another miracle win. 4 points against Geelong this time, 117-113.
And the analysis noted their method was simple. They thrived in that high-score pressure cooker environment. Their 2 tight wins just cemented them as the chaos team. They didn't need percentage.
They just needed to hold their nerve.
Exactly. And that left Adelaide and Hawthorn as the only 2 3-0 teams, the early premiership favorites, simply because they survived.
But while they're surviving, St. Kilda is making a statement. A big one.
A huge one. They win a 50-goal classic against Port Adelaide, 137-125, to get their own 3-0 start. And Fremantle dropped the biggest score of the round.
21.17, a 50-point demolition of Essendon.
And this is the crucial observation, right? The gap between the top tier and the bottom was expanding rapidly, at least in terms of margin.
Which put intense pressure on those teams starting 0-2.
And here we get our first big escape act. North Melbourne stunned Sydney by 16 points.
Vital for North.
But it pushed Sydney, now 0-3, and Essendon, also 0-3, firmly into what the sources dubbed panic stations. The power structure was set, but the field below was already full of teams just fighting for their lives.
So now we move from that establishment phase into the midseason, and that initial structure we just detailed, it begins to fracture completely.
It really does. Round 4 was the showdown of the undefeated. Adelaide versus Hawthorn.
And Adelaide claims sole leadership, a solid 26-point win.
Yeah, 97-71. And that win really consolidated their position as the powerhouse. But the whole narrative changed by the end of round 5.
Right.
Volatility officially took over.
No team remained unbeaten.
Not a single one. St. Kilda was the last one standing at 4-0, but their perfect start was ended abruptly by those unpredictable Bulldogs.
In what the reports called an instant classic, a 58-goal roof shootout.
The Dogs won 146-136. It was just a dizzying game.
And that says a lot about the advantage of playing under the roof at Marvel, doesn't it?
It does. It removes all the external factors and just lets high-pace, high-offense teams execute their game plan. It proved the Dogs' offense was nuclear when it fired. And it meant the whole competition was now wide open.
And the power structure took another big hit in round 5. Geelong, after being shell-shocked early, finally showed up at home.
They did, at the GMHBA Fortress. And they beat the percentage monster, Adelaide, by 10 points.
That was Adelaide's first loss.
And its strategic importance can't be overstated. It showed everyone that even the untouchable teams had a fatal weakness that could be exploited on the road.
So while the undefeated teams were falling, other teams were finding terrifying form. Melbourne's scoring output was just becoming monstrous.
Terrifying and frustrating in equal measure.
Right, because of the inaccuracy.
Exactly. The reports highlight these massive scores. 20.16 against Collingwood, then 20.15 against Essendon. That win over the Bombers sent them to 0-5. dead last, 73.4% percentage.
So the conclusion was clear. Melbourne has the firepower, but they can't close.
Not consistently. They could only flirt with the top four, not dominate it.
And we also had the Western Derby in round 5, the reigning premiers, West Coast.
Reminded everyone they still had that champion grit.
Yeah.
They stormed home with 8-4 in the last quarter to beat Fremantle by 20.
And that victory, secured through sheer will, put them where?
Number 1 in the rankings after round 5. We had gone from Adelaide's dominance to West Coast's consistency in just 5 weeks. Hashtag 2.2, the revival of the century, round 6 to 8.
Okay, now we get to what has to be the most compelling narrative shift of the entire first half. Essendon, they were 0-5, dead last, cooked.
Wooden spoon favorites. And then out of nowhere, the Essendon zombie revival.
It's just an unbelievable turnaround.
The sheer statistical improbability is what makes it so fascinating. In round 6, they deliver a genuine shock boil-over, smashing a mid-table Brisbane by 29 points.
And that wasn't just a win, it was the start of something.
It was the start of this undeniable, aggressive momentum. And that momentum built to what the reports called the biggest upset of the season just 2 rounds later.
So what allowed a team that was 0-5 to do that?
In round 8, they delivered a stunning 68-point annihilation of Port Adelaide, 122-54. The reports suggest it was less about talent and more about psychological liberation.
The Bear sure was off.
Exactly. They got that first win, and they could just play with this aggressive freedom that the contenders couldn't afford. And Port Adelaide was in a full psychological meltdown.
So Essendon goes from 0-5 to 4-5 in 6 weeks, climbs to 11th, the revival of the year.
And it completely disrupted the assumption that the bottom half of the ladder was settled. But in contrast, you saw these collapses and chaotic survival acts happening elsewhere.
Brisbane's season was still teetering.
Severely. That shock loss to Essendon in round 6 meant they could never string enough wins together to build real momentum.
But Collingwood, they survived their own crisis through sheer grit, back-to-back miracle
It
wins.
was absolute desperation. Round 6, they win a 3-point thriller over Gold Coast by kicking 6 goals in the last 8 minutes.
6 goals in 8 minutes.
Unbelievable. Then, round 7, a 1-point heist against the luckless Port Adelaide with the last kick of the game. They were the masters of survival.
And the team that started it all? Adelaide. Their aura was completely shattered.
Their dominance was proven to be conditional. They suffered 2 high-profile shock losses in 3 weeks. They lose by 9 to a free-falling Sydney at home.
Wow.
Then they suffer a humiliating 42-point embarrassment by St. Kilda. Their percentage kept them afloat at number 8, but the sources were unanimous. Their dominance was seriously questioned.
And Gold Coast, they proved they were genuine.
They absolutely did. They stunned the reigning premiers, West Coast, in Perth by 20 points. That was critical. It proved they could beat big teams interstate, and it just signaled the depth of competition in this season. Hashtag 2.3, the new top tier. End of round 8.
So after 8 rounds of this insane volatility, the mid-season shift stabilized just for a moment, giving us a new, though precarious, top tier.
And St. Kilda took the number 1 spot. After that hiding from the Dogs, they rebounded spectacularly to deliver that 42-point statement win over Adelaide.
So the data showed them as the most consistent side at that point.
Yeah, 6-2, 105.9%. They had the pressure, the clutch factor, and now the scoring power was back.
Right behind them, GWS. Pure firepower.
Pure offensive aggression. They dropped the highest score of the round, 22.16, in a 48-point thrashing of the Bulldogs.
And that just showed that while the ladder was volatile, if you could put up triple-digit scores consistently, you were going to rise.
Especially if you weren't wasting shots like Melbourne.
And the chaos engine itself, Hawthorn, just kept rolling along.
6-3, 104.3%. They were perfectly positioned. They loved the close ones. They loved the blowouts. They were just designed for season 11.
They maintained just enough percentage to offset their reliance on those tight wins.
And that kept them as a constant threat near the top 4 bubble, which set the stage perfectly for the final run where every single percentage point was going to matter.
Round 9 brought no relief. It was all about magnifying the margin of chaos. We saw these 2 massive, almost unbelievable blowouts.
Starting with the Western Bulldogs, who seemed to have figured out their formula, win big or lose close.
Right.
They delivered what the reports called the biggest belting of the season up to that point. A staggering 64-point demolition of Collingwood, 125-61.
Under the roof at Marvel again?
Again, and this sparked immediate discussion about a real resurgence. They were only 4 and 6, but their percentage was surprisingly healthy because of these violent swings.
And the volatility just kept annihilating power structures. Sydney, who were 1 and 5 just weeks before.
They staged a surprise attack, explode for 17 goals in a stunning 39-point thrashing of the high-flying St. Kilda Saints.
Right after they'd gotten to number 1.
Exactly. It stalled the Saints' momentum completely. And it proves that the ability of lower-ranked teams to deliver these massive upsets to top-4 contenders became the single defining characteristic of the season.
No one was safe?
Not at all. Meanwhile, West Coast solidified their clutch king status, winning another one-point thriller.
Over Port Adelaide. At Adelaide Oval.
Oh, Port Adelaide. Their section of the report should come with a trigger warning. They are the heartbreaker specialists. Now, 3 and 6, full crisis, multiple one-point losses, that's 68-point annihilation.
They're just the chief victims of the season's chaos.
And psychological fragility, yeah.
As for Essendon, their round 9 win meant they had 5 wins in 7 games, peaking at 9th in the rankings.
An unbelievable comeback. But even a team like Richmond with the most potent attack showed their vulnerability, losing to Adelaide after leading early. It just exposed their defensive lapses.
Reinforcing the point that every single team had a weakness.
And was susceptible to a shock defeat that could derail their entire trajectory. Hashtag tag 3.2, top 4 shifts, and brutal rebounds. Round 10-11.
Okay, rounds 10 and 11 just intensified that battle for the top 4. It was all about brutal rebounds or teams sliding fast.
Round 10 delivered a massive defining upset. Fremantle just dominated St. Kilda from start to finish, a 39-point win.
And that confirmed the Saints' rough patch was more than just a one-off.
It showed their pressure game was fundamentally cracking, and it caused them to fall out of the top 2. Meanwhile, Brisbane stole the Queensland Derby by 2 points.
Winning kick in the final 30 seconds.
Clutch wins like that are absolutely vital. But round 11 was all about percentage, purely about margin.
This is where we see the mechanics of the percentage monster at work.
Exactly. Fremantle delivered a 60-point percentage massacre over Gold Coast. That single game, that margin, it vaulted them over teams with more wins. They became the new number 1 team.
That's why percentage matters so much when you have this kind of compression.
That one 60-point win is worth the equivalent of 5 narrow victories.
But St. Kilda, showing their own volatility, delivered a brutal rebound, thrashing Richmond by 45 points.
And that kind of elite pressure response confirmed they were still a genuine threat.
And the Bulldogs,
still riding that wave of manic intensity. They delivered their second massive upset in a row, shocking West Coast by 42 points.
Which meant the reigning premiers suffered a major road loss.
And the Dogs, at 5 and 6, suddenly looked like an authentic dark horse threat to surge into contention.
But the Essendon revival, sadly, had to end. That's just the nature of this season.
The streak officially ended in round 10 with a loss to the Dogs, and the momentum was killed in round 11 with a 56-point demolition by Hawthorn.
So the revival was over.
Officially. It's the perfect illustration of season 11. You can go 5 and 2 for 7 weeks, but 1 or 2 massive percentage hits can instantly erase all that game.
So after round 11, what does the ladder look like? The top 4 are all tightly packed.
And the sources highlight the critical consequence. Severe ladder compression. 13 teams still had 4 or more wins. The mid-table was an impossible mess.
You win 2, you're in the 8. You lose 1, you're 12th.
Exactly. The 8th spot is no longer protected. It's a free-for-all. And the true test of survival was about to begin.
So the final phase of our deep dive begins with round 12, and it delivered the massive shocks needed to completely redefine that top 8.
The biggest result was Collingwood's statement win. The Pies, masters of the tight struggle, delivered a massive upset, dominated the ladder-leading Adelaide Crows by 48 points.
120-72, that's not a close game.
No, it was a physical dismantling. And the immediate consequence was that Collingwood jumped from outside the 8 right into a genuine finals threat at number 8.
And Adelaide's percentage gets hit hard.
Very hard. It made them instantly vulnerable, dropped them to number 5. It shows that teams that learn to win close games and then deliver one big percentage booster can just leapfrog everyone.
And there was a symmetry of shock in Perth that same round.
Hawthorn, the masters of chaos. They provide another massive road upset, stealing a 4-point thriller against West Coast in Perth.
And that was critical because it exposed West Coast's slipping home form.
For a reigning premier who relies on their fortress, losing 2 tight ones at home is a huge warning sign that their psychological edge has faded.
So with all this instability at the top, we got a new leader.
Brisbane Lions. They claimed the number 1 spot at 9 and 3. They were deemed the team to beat, having seemingly navigated the chaos better than the others.
And St. Kilda was locked into the top 4.
Right. And Sydney's narrow 4-point derby win over GWS gave their season just enough momentum to stay breathing, continuing that theme of high-stakes survival. Hashtag 4.2, the biggest shock of the season. Round 13.
This brings us to round 13. The game that, according to all our sources, shattered the perceived top 4 structure overnight and just reset the entire finals race.
This is where the Bulldogs complete their ultimate transformation. From soul-crushed losers in round 1 to the most volatile, dangerous team in the competition.
They hit peak performance.
They delivered what the reports are calling the biggest shock of the season by utterly demolishing the ladder-leading Brisbane Lions by 60 points. 113 to 53.
60 points. Against the team everyone just crowned the most stable contender, what was the immediate consequence of that humiliation?
Brisbane plummeted instantly from number 1 to number 4. Their aura took a massive hit. The psychological damage of that margin is just immense.
It proved even consistency doesn't guarantee security.
Not in season 11. And crucially, the Bulldogs, now 6 and 7, surged into contention at number 10, carrying a significant percentage boost that made them a real threat for that 8th spot.
And the chaos continued elsewhere.
Absolutely. West Coast cemented their road warrior status by snatching a 1-point thriller over Geelong at GMHBA, a huge win for their hopes.
And Port Adelaide finally avoided the heartbreak narrative.
They stunned Fremantle at Optus by 33 points.
Yeah.
The Dockers' elite defense cracked, and the sources said they were sliding fast from their brief time at number 1.
So after 13 brutal rounds, how crowded was the field?
It was a disastrous cluster. Adelaide, St. Kilda, and the severely stung Brisbane Lions were joint leaders, all 9 and 4.
And right behind them?
Richmond, Geelong, West Coast, and Collingwood were all tightly packed on 32 points. And right on the bubble, 7 teams were all level at 6 and 7.
7 teams.
It's the brutal phase, where 28 to 32 points would likely be needed just to scrape into 8th. Every single game is now essentially a final. Hashtag 4.3, previewing the brutal endgame. Round 14.
Okay, round 14, the final week of our source material, and it focuses entirely on high stakes, potential upsets, and predictions for the chaos ahead.
The fixture immediately presented a crucial top 4 clash. West Coast versus Adelaide at Optus Stadium.
The winner secures top 4 positioning.
Which is vital. The prediction favored Adelaide by 22, despite their vulnerability. It really highlights the Crows' percentage and talent advantage over West Coast's slipping home form.
And the sources didn't predict a quiet round. They highlighted a major upset alert.
They did. The forecast called for chaos, specifically predicting Hawthorn to upset the badly stung Brisbane Lions at the Gabba.
And think about the stakes there. If Hawthorn beats them at home, right after that 60-point humiliation,
Brisbane's confidence could completely collapse. It could drop them right out of the top 4. It's a massive test of their mental resilience.
And for the mid-table teams needing that percentage boost,
there was a lock of the round. Port Adelaide was predicted to get a much-needed booster against North Melbourne, beating them by 48.
Which just reflects the reality of the compression. It's not enough to win, you have to win big.
Exactly. The reports forecasted 2 50-plus blowouts for the round, which just underscores the trajectory. Massive margins are now the expected norm.
So what's your final analysis of this season's trajectory heading into these last few rounds?
The sources indicate a season defined by extreme unpredictability, where dominance is instantly punished. Teams capable of 60-point wins are also capable of suffering 60-point losses.
We've seen it from almost every team.
This volatility, driven by matchups and venue advantages like that Marvel roof, it made the severe ladder compression we see now absolutely inevitable. Every team is one 50-point beating away from falling out of contention. Hashtag outro.
It's been a truly astonishing deep dive. The core theme of AFT Dice Season 11 is just instability on a scale we really haven't seen before.
It is.
Consistent dominance was impossible. Momentum shifted violently week to week. I mean, look at Essendon's revival and then the collapse of Brisbane from number 1 to number 4 in one game.
The magnitude of the margin fluctuation is the most important takeaway. The ladder is compressed precisely because the difference between a team's best and worst performance is often a swing of well over 100 points.
100 points.
They're either nuclear or they're non-existent on any given Saturday.
Which is why the endgame feels so brutal. And it brings us to this final question. Considering the huge blowouts and the one-point thrillers, what specific factor is truly required to survive this level of volatility and claim a top 4 spot? The sources give us the data, but they don't give us the final answer.
And this is the question the data demands you mull over. Is it chaos, like Hawthorn's knack for winning tight ones? Is it sheer raw scoring power, like Richmond and Melbourne dropping 100-plus points?
Or is it that pure percentage buffer that kept Adelaide and Fremantle alive even when they lost?
The data suggests every single team has a fatal weakness, whether it's inaccuracy, defending the fast transition, or just psychological fragility under pressure. Surviving the final 4 rounds requires overcoming that inherent flaw.
And the reports show the entire field is just waiting for one of the top 4 to crack.
Exactly.
A fantastic, provocative question to end on. Thank you for diving deep into the source material with us today and mapping the absolute mayhem of AFT Dice Season 11. We look forward to seeing how that final brutal endgame plays out.